Hello and welcome to another episode of The Brothers Discuss. I am Alex.
And I'm Chris.
Alright, so the world is an awful place right now, but hey, this is fun and hopefully you'll have fun listening to what we have to talk about today. And today, this is going to be our dissection of the summer movies of 2022, so I'll put timestamps in the description if you want to skip to a specific movie. Like, if you don't want to hear us talk about Jurassic World, for example, then you can skip to us talking about something else. So, are you ready to dive through the summer?
Let's do it.
So, we have both seen a movie that has recently become the most successful film in the box office this year, Top Gun Maverick. This is a surprise in some ways, and not a surprise in a lot of ways, but it makes sense. We talk a lot about how Tom Cruise is kind of the last big movie star. Like, there are a lot of famous actors and celebrities and what have you, but there are very few actors from a previous era that still feel like really big movie stars. Top Gun Maverick, it's a big screen spectacle, and I love watching it. And I watched the first Top Gun. I've seen it before. It's kind of a famous movie that everybody knows about, but it's been a long time since I've watched it in full. So I watched it right before seeing Maverick, and it's very of its time. It's a very 80s movie. There's stuff in it that you wouldn't see in movies today. Like, there's almost 15 minutes straight of Take My Breath Away in the soundtrack at one point. But it's a fun action movie of the 80s.
Yeah.
This new film keeps a lot of that fun and a lot of the cheesiness of that film, but updates it a bit. And like I said, it's a big screen spectacle, and I loved it. But you are Mr. Top Gun to me. So, Chris, what did you think of Top Gun Maverick?
I absolutely love Top Gun Maverick. I really, really liked the original Top Gun. I watched it for the first time a couple days before seeing Maverick. And I definitely was thinking, it's like, yeah, this movie is probably really awesome in the 80s. It probably hasn't aged that well, but that's okay because it's really corny and I love it. But I very much love Top Gun Maverick because basically what you said, it still holds that cheese and all of that, beautiful corniness, but also like just making it a much more serious movie. It's like, it's so weird how it blends both of those things like seamlessly. And that to me was like really, really impressive. But the biggest thing is that I bet like the Marvel CG folks are really jealous of this movie because of just how practical it is. And just like that to me is what, just all of the things that they did practically in this movie. And it's like, the flight sequences is like, they're all happening in real time. And it's like, it's really great. It's a really well-made movie. It's just really fun, exciting, surprisingly emotional, which you wouldn't think it would be for a Top Gun sequel, but it's really great. I love this movie a lot.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the practical stuff because it was the perfect balance of the fun, action, like excitement, typical military type characters with your modern action and the things people have sort of clamored for since, and it's always come back to this, but the rise of Avengers type films. I mean, like, remember the marketing for both The Force Awakens and Rogue One was like, we built sets, we have fucking props, and it's like, wow, it's not a green screen like the prequels. Like, that was their whole selling point for the older fans, and it's funny, like, looking back on that real quick, and we'll talk about this with something else later, but so much of that was, we're not doing the prequels. This isn't the prequels. We're done. And you circle back around, and the Avengers films are shot in a certain way. And it's funny how we're back to that. And something like Top Gun and Mission Impossible feel a lot more unique, or like what Chris Nolan does, or people who use a lot of practical stunts or sets. Like, that feels more like a niche now, which is something else.
Yeah.
I'll just say a couple quick things. I think possibly the biggest laugh I got in the movie was near the beginning of the film, when Maverick wanders into a diner after the plane crashed, after he got to Mach 10 or something, and he's looking around, and everyone looks at him, and he takes a sip of water and says something like, "Where am I?" And the little kid replies, "Ugh." Like, big laugh.
Yeah.
And I loved the Val Kilmer scene. Obviously, I'm a Batman Forever guy, so I have some sentimentality about Val Kilmer, who's fallen on some pretty hard times. And it's not like his performance is anything amazing, but just him being there, his presence, and I thought it was very, very sweet.
It was.
I hate the term "got me in the feels." Again, we'll come back to that in a topic later, because I have something to say, but that was a moment I got a little more emotional than I figured I would while watching Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
But that was a lovely scene, and there was a point where I thought the movie was about to end, and then it kept going in a good way.
In a good way,
suddenly, there was a whole other section of the movie that I was not expecting at all, and I thought it was very, very exciting. Like I said, exhilarating film.
Yeah.
So we both saw Jurassic World Dominion, the final Jurassic World Dominion film to come out this year, and we both already discussed it in our last podcast. So to sum up, it's very boring and pretty embarrassing. I thought it completely wasted the three great original actors that they brought into this. It's like the poor man's version of The Force Awakens. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was a movie that was about Richard Parker and the bugs.
Again.
Actually, can I say something real quick? So
Go
Campbell
ahead.
Scott plays Dotson in this film. And I completely missed that detail when I saw this because I was laughing too much at what appeared to just be Richard Parker from The Amazing Spider-Man. Like, he was in a lab and everything, and it just looked like a scene from one of those movies. So I completely missed the introduction of his name. That's a fun fact. Okay, so I saw Men. I see men every day. That sounds... Anyway, Alex Garland's new film, Men. Okay, so performance and atmosphere, like, it's enough to make me enjoy the film, even if the story is a little loose. I'll say loose. Both Jesse Buckley and Roy Kinnear are the two lead actors in the film, and they're both really great. The film is very creepy. I loved its editing and its visuals and its sound. Reactions to this are very mixed. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. There's a lot of reviews where they basically sum up the film by saying, men are bad. We already knew this. I don't know. I just think that's an unproductive way to look at a movie. I think it's fair to call the film interpretive. Like, I think the film is more about dealing with grief more than men are bad. The one character in the film Jessie Buckley plays, her relationship with grief and with men moving forward, I think that's what the film is more about. I don't think it's this big general representation of men in society necessarily. There is some of that, but I think it's more about this one character and how she's moving forward, and her character was divorcing her husband and he committed suicide. Or he dies. It's kind of up in the air, but he tells her earlier in the film that if she leaves him, that he'll kill himself. So it's her dealing with that. She goes to a small town and rents this cottage, and every man in this small town is played by Rory Kinnear, who is one of those great British actors that you see in a lot of things. He's Tanner in the Bond films, for instance. But he's one of those actors that pops up in everything because a lot of stuff gets made in the UK. So he's one of those great actors, and in this, he gets to stretch his acting muscles because he plays every other male character in the film. He doesn't play the husband, but he's every other male character. And it's never marked upon either. It's like living in a nightmare. Like, the film feels like a nightmare. And I mean that as a positive, not like Jurassic World is a nightmare. The film feels like again, I liked it. A lot of people don't, but the atmosphere of the film, along with the performances of the film, was what I liked. So there you go. It's not Ex Machina. It's not Annihilation. I don't think it's Dread either. But I thought it was a good film. But it doesn't have a great Rotten Tomatoes score, so you decide for yourself. All right, so you watched for the first time Everything Everywhere All at Once. What did you think of it?
I thought it was amazing, and it kind of like Top Gun Maverick, but in a totally different way. It captured cheesy and goofiness with genuine, heartfelt emotion. Um, I thought, this is just conceptually, it's multiverse, well, not Marvel multiverse. Um, yeah, but it's really fun, really exciting, and again, it's got really great themes in it. Um, about like choosing your own destiny and like who you want to be and all that, and it's just a really 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 great movie. And like I went into it thinking this is gonna be a fun gimmicky movie. It's made by the same guy who did Swiss Army Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I like. Swiss Army Man, I don't love it, but this I thought was just a really, really beautiful movie and just fun. Um, a lot more comedic than I thought it would be. But yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, and I did watch this when it first came out back in like what was it, March or April or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought it was one of the most unique, most creative, most batshit crazy film I've ever seen in my life. It was insane.
It
Um,
is.
like you said, it was made by Daniels, the two directors named Daniel who did Swiss Army Man, which is quite good. But I knew the second I saw this that I had seen something special. Like it didn't make a ton of money at the box office, but it's becoming one of those like instant like cult classic films that people are going to discover as time goes on.
Yeah.
But like I said, I knew that once I had seen it, I knew I'd seen something special.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Oh boy. So we both watched Obi-Wan Kenobi. I almost fell asleep at one point, so it's arguable whether I watched it. So Obi-Wan was a 6-part limited series on the hit streaming service Disney Plus. You can get it now and watch Robin Hood. Obi-Wan was fine, I guess. I struggle to say that because everyone is giving the show either praise or pass, and I feel that's difficult for me because I didn't like it, and I feel it's reasonable on my part. The show just didn't do anything interesting for me. Like, there's interesting things in it. Ironically, the thing I didn't think I would need at all was the most interesting thing, and that's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
No secret, Darth Vader plays quite a role in this show, and I was ready to be like, ugh, Darth Vader, we get it, this fucking guy again. But for me personally, I think he's the best part of the show.
Oh
and
yeah.
he has the best moment in the entire show. And I think the best moments justifies why they brought Hayden Christensen back.
For
However, the rest of the show is boring, and I don't really follow what was supposed to happen. It's a lot of characters go do a thing, and Obi-Wan kind of mopes around. And there's concepts and ideas that I think are fine, like the character Reva. Reva, of course, is essentially our new main bad guy for this show. She is an Inquisitor, which is essentially a group of like elite bad guys that hunt down Jedi. I don't remember if that's ever explained in the show. Like, I know it because I watch Star Wars crap, but would anyone that hasn't watched like the cartoons know who those people are in the show?
It doesn't matter. Who cares? Can I just say something? I've watched Rebels. I've played Jedi Fallen Order. I'm so fucking tired of Inquisitors. Like, it is... I because it's the same thing every single time. Every time you try to humanize an Inquisitor, it's the same thing. It's like Jedi Fallen Order did it, and it was great, and it was like it was neat. That was 3 years ago. You can't just keep doing this again and again, and it's like, I'm tired of Inquisitors. Vader, I completely agree with you, like, stole the show, especially in the last episode, like, where he has his kind of big monologue. It's like the only scene in the entire show that has any sort of lighting. it was pretty great. And I completely agree with you. The rest was just kind of nothing. I don't think I hated it as much as you, though, because it's like, I like what they were going for with this. And as just a concept, I'm okay with the idea of having an Obi-Wan show. But it feels very Marvel-y to me in that it definitely feels like, because it definitely was a 2-hour movie stretched to be 6 hours. Because this was, I know this for a fact, this was supposed to be a movie. That was like way, way back in the day. Same with Boba Fett, and that had the exact same effect for me. And it's weird because it's like Star Wars feels, at least with like The Mandalorian, it felt like it knew how to handle its shows. This felt very sloppy and just kind of messy, and just like as a structure. It's like Mandalorian, yeah, it has some filler episodes here and there, but, you know, it still functions as a show. It's Mandalorian and Baby Yoda going off on these weird space adventures. They go on a new planet. They have to help these people and all that, and it's fun. And the show gets more tense as it goes along, but this just feels like we have to do this. Like, remember when Obi-Wan like got burned in the show, and then that completely had no impact on the rest of the show?
Yeah.
It was pretty sloppy, but when the show like finally like got moving, it was okay. It wasn't terrible, but overall it was kind of a big snooze fest.
Yeah. And then we have the Grand Inquisitor, Pumpkinhead. He's a cool bad guy in the cartoon, and he was a lame bad guy in this. So, anyways, back to Reva. She got a lot of hate online because she was a black woman and people are fucking stupid. But
yeah,
her character was just kind of boring to me. Like, I got what they were going for, but I feel that's it. Like, this show is fine if you just want to watch the events, but I didn't feel like I got to know any of these characters. Like, I wanted intimate moments with these characters. I wanted to know who Reva was, and conceptually I got it. She's one of the bad guys, but she goes a little too far. Like, sometimes she does shit, and the other bad guys are like, you need to chill. Like, okay, she's overly angry. I get it. I get what you're going for, but I needed her to be alone, and I needed to know her and her faults, her emotions, and what she's doing. It's not until, like, the second to last episode we get the confirmation of what's up in the first episode of, oh, she's one of the younglings, and now she wants revenge on Darth Vader, and it's like, well, why didn't we get into that? Like, I would have liked to have known her as a person. Instead, it's just characters walk into a room. They walk around. They say some things. They walk, and they leave. Like, that's all anybody does in this entire show, and I didn't find it interesting. Like, I didn't really find little Leia interesting. Like, it didn't add anything to the story for me. Like, if I wanted to look at it from a lore perspective, like these Star Wars guys do, this doesn't add anything to the overarching story, but it muddles it. Like, I hate to be one of those guys that's like, oh, the canon and the timeline, but 19-year-old Leia Organa contacts Obi-Wan and says, years ago, you served my father in the Clone Wars, not years ago, you rescued me from Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's stuff like that that's weird. Like, nothing really got me, except for Darth Vader. I feel like Darth Vader's first appearance where he shows up and starts, like, hurting or killing people to get Obi-Wan's attention, and then sort of his disappointment with Obi-Wan being like a cowardly, weak old man because he's sort of disconnected from the Force. Like, and that's another thing. I wish we'd gotten a story about how Obi-Wan separated himself and basically, to say it in easy terms, needed to accept Jesus Christ back into his heart. But it doesn't focus on that. We get snippets of it, but it would have been interesting to see him like talk about the Force like how he does in the original trilogy, expand on the lore of the Force, like talk about it like it's a thing, because that's some of the best stuff in Empire is Yoda talking about what the Force is and how it's not just lifting rocks and flipping with a lightsaber. It's a concept that binds the universe together. Like, that's not really in this show.
No.
Like, if you want Darth Vader being an intimidating dude, I like that.
Yeah.
There's a part where Darth Vader lights up a bunch of coals or something and then rubs Obi-Wan's face in it. And that's the best part because he's pissed at him. He's like, I'm going to do to you what you did to me. And that's funny. I like that.
That's great, yeah.
So early I said people are either disappointed by it or praising it like it's the greatest thing in the world. And I come at this with an interesting perspective of like, I became a born-again Star Wars fan with The Force Awakens. I watched Star Wars when I was a kid, and I had toys, and I played the video games, and I'm sure I liked the Phantom Menace when I was a kid because it came out when I was a little kid. I remember watching Attack of the Clones. I almost called it Clone Wars. Attack of the Clones in theaters, and laughing hysterically at Yoda playing with a lightsaber because as a kid, it looked like the most ridiculous thing to me. It looked hilarious. But I hated the movie otherwise because nobody was talking like a regular person, so I hated that. And yeah, I also saw episode 3 in theaters as well. But it was Force Awakens that brought me back in. And every moment of being invested in Star Wars since 2015 has been a nightmare because nobody is ever satisfied. Disney produced these films and shows at a variety of quality. I'm just sick of it. It's sad. Like, I don't care anymore, and it wasn't even that long ago that I was brought back in, really. And an Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan show was the one thing I still had some interest in seeing after the variety of quality of these projects. And, like, for instance, when I watched the first 2 episodes, I didn't think they were anything special, but I then go online and see people talk about how it made them cry. And I realize I'm just no longer the target audience. Like, if you love this stuff, more power to you. They're making this stuff for you. But when everyone lost their minds and loved the ending of Mandalorian Season 2, when, like, CGI Luke Skywalker shows up and takes Baby Yoda, I think that's probably the moment my interest in Star Wars died. Like, I didn't realize it at the time, but that's kind of the breaking point for me. Like, this is no longer for me because I don't care about this stuff. I liked, like you were saying, I liked The Mandalorian, how it was a show about a guy going to a different planet and a nightmare scenario would happen and then he'd overcome it and move on and repeat.
Yeah.
Then the ending was Star Wars is about the same characters that it was in the 70s. That harsh reminder, and as long as you're referencing that and reminding people of that, then those fans will eat it up. And that's who they make Star Wars for now. And I said earlier, Force Awakens was, look, we're not making the prequels. Like, look how real everything is. We're using a puppet of Yoda in The Last Jedi. And the Obi-Wan show comes out, and it's, well, we plucked the one thing that everyone agrees was good, right? The casting of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. But it then preys on people's nostalgia for the prequels. And look, I'm fine with accepting the prequels. Like, I like continuity. I like accepting that it happened. Like, I don't have a problem with referencing them. That's not inherently bad. Knowing that it's like, see, they were good all along. Like, that's become the online discussion. And I don't have time in my life to deal with that anymore.
Yeah. It's not worth it. It's like, I'm just waiting for, like, Star Wars to just impress me, you know? And it's, what I want to see in Star Wars is, like, what no one wants to see. You know, people just want lightsabers and the Force and Jedi and characters and things, you know, and it's like, no, I just want, like, weird stuff, like stuff that could happen in our world happening in just random parts of this galaxy with, like, unique things going on. I'm tired of seeing just more of the same. And, like, you know, Mandalorian Season 1 was absolutely, you know, wonderful. It was just a wonderful, like, branch out of Star Wars. It has things, you know, but those things are to help elevate a greater story. Season 2 was just, here are things you actually know, and it kind of overshadowed the show. Really hope Season 3 doesn't do that, but yeah. It's kind of sad. Like, I would absolutely love to see, like, a casino heist in Star Wars. We're never going to see that, though, because people want Jedis and lightsabers and all of that. And it's like, that's all the franchise is just going to be for the future. And Cassian
Speaking of
Andor.
lightsabers, in one of the episodes, we get a flashback scene between Hayden Christensen's Anakin and Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan around the Attack of the Clones era. Hayden isn't DH, so it kind of looks like a grown man dressing up as a Padawan, so that's a little strange, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But instead of a way to, quote, fix the prequels, because one of the big complaints of Attack of the Clones is the dialogue and Hayden's acting. Like, that's a thing people joked about. Like, why didn't we get a scene of Hayden Christensen showing off his acting chops and having these two characters battling ideologies like Jedi, you know? Like, talking things out. But instead, it's a lightsaber fight, and I've seen them have a lightsaber fight. Like, I don't need to watch another stupid lightsaber fight. It's supposed to tell us about his character, about how Anakin is, like, headstrong and brash, I suppose. But I already knew that. I don't need new information on Anakin Skywalker. Like, this would have been a good opportunity to show that back in the day they were indeed friends, but they clearly had clashing ideas. And I know some people are going to say, they do that in that scene. But yeah, but Anakin comes at it a certain way, and Obi-Wan shows him that's not correct. Yeah, but it's in a stupid lightsaber fight. Like, I just didn't need it. And that was disappointing to me. But there's other things I liked, I guess. What's the actor's name from The Eternals and The Big Sick? I liked his bit.
Yeah.
He was a con artist tricking people into thinking he was a Jedi guiding safe passage. And I guess he was a good guy, but he was morally gray. Like, that's a Star Wars character. I like that as an idea, but it's only in one episode.
Right.
And like I alluded to before, and like you mentioned, there is a moment where Darth Vader and Obi-Wan have their big final fight, and the fight itself is fine. Like, I don't like the way it's filmed. It's way too dark and shaky for me.
Yeah.
But there is a nice moment that is lifted completely from Rebels, so it's not exactly original, but it was good where Obi-Wan slices up Darth Vader's mask and it reveals Anakin Skywalker underneath. And Ewan McGregor's performance is believable and good, and the shift between the Darth Vader, James Earl Jones modulated voice and the Hayden Christensen voice as he's talking because his face is exposed, it was well done.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the best thing in the entire show, and I'm happy that they did it because it was a legitimately good thing that they did.
Yeah.
And as I was watching it, this whole show has been about Obi-Wan feeling guilty about, because he and Yoda failed to defeat Darth Vader and the Emperor back in the day. The Empire took over. Now he's in hiding. He's always felt guilty about Anakin. And Anakin, in a way, makes him feel better because he says, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. Like Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker. But then I go online and see people say, like, oh, they need to explain why Obi-Wan says to Luke, like, Darth Vader killed his father. And I was like, what? I was dumbfounded because they're right. But I didn't think that needed explaining. Like, Obi-Wan explains it in Return of the Jedi, and in the scene it works, but once I realized why they put it in there, that's what all these prequels are, is connecting dots. That's what it came off as. But that's all I really enjoy. Like, I still don't get how the whole thing worked with Reva. Like, she was killed as a child, but she lived through it. But she gets stabbed again, and freaking Pumpkinhead is like, revenge is a powerful way to keep yourself alive. And I guess the same goes for Maul, and I guess Vader?
Qui-Gon's the only one to die from a stab wound.
Like, how was she so angry as a child? How did she have the anger of a Sith Lord as a child to survive being stabbed by Darth Vader during Order 66? How did fucking Pumpkinhead do it? Like, I don't understand it. It's just very silly.
Yeah.
And stabbing is such a definitive way to kill someone. And apparently, as long as you're angry about it, you can survive. Like, that look on Maul's face when Obi-Wan cut him in half was not, ugh, I've been cut in half. It was, I'm so angry.
Yeah.
It's too bad that Qui-Gon wasn't angry when he was stabbed by Maul. He just gets to become a ghost instead, so it's basically living again.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with that, because with Maul, when we find Maul again in Clone Wars, he's crazy. Like, he has no sense in his head. He's gibberish. He's like a complete weirdo.
Mhm.
So the idea is that he's not really alive. He's like a blubbering psychopath. So it's like he survived, but at what cost? And like literal witches performed magic on him, and they fixed him up. Like, I don't know if those witches were around to fix Pumpkinhead and Reva. It's just all very stupid.
Yeah.
And Qui-Gon was in the show, though, and he was probably the best part besides Vader.
That's true. His little cameo, it was nice.
He was very chipper, and he had more personality than he did in The Phantom Menace.
In just like a 20-second scene.
Yeah, he had more emotion in his voice, and which is incredible for a prequel character. I love Liam Neeson, but if you like the show, you probably tweeted like a crying emoji by now.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. Fuck Star Wars fans. You're lame. Anyways, I saw a movie called Cha-Cha Real Smooth. Chris, have you seen this movie?
No.
So, it's directed by Cooper Raiff. I really liked his last film called Shithouse. He wrote both films, and he also directed and starred as the lead in both of these films. So I was interested in this going in. I heard how good it was at Sundance this year, so I was interested in it, and I really liked it. It's about a 22-year-old guy who returns home from college, and he's working a crappy job at like a fast food restaurant in a mall, and he's feeling directionless, and upon accompanying his younger brother to a bar mitzvah, he's the one that gets the kids to go on a dance, and so he gets approached to be like the party starter at more of these birthdays by the parents. Meanwhile, there's a mother of one of these kids played by Dakota Johnson, and these two characters bond. She has an autistic daughter, and Rafe's character babysits her. It's a sweet film. I really recommend it. It's on Apple TV Plus, so not everybody has that. But I will say, between this and Coda, the Best Picture winner from this year, and the show Ted Lasso, Apple have the market for good-hearted, like wholesome shows, I feel, with likable characters, which is interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of these streaming services will throw stuff on the wall to see what sticks, and we've seen what's happening now with Netflix of years of doing that. Like investing in all sorts of random weird stuff, and it's like, no, we got to stick to this format now because people aren't watching all this random stuff we put on. Like, again, Apple make a bunch of shows, but the stuff that really seems to stick with people, or at least the quality that people are talking about, is the kind-hearted stuff. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I recommend it. He's a talented young fella, that Cooper Raiff. He understands the feeling of being aimless as a young person despite being kind of successful himself. So that's frustrating. But it's a good film. I recommend it.
Okay.
And speaking of Cha-Cha Real Smooth, you know who else liked to dance? He's swinging his hips. Let's talk about Elvis! So this was directed by a young fellow. Not really. It was an old fellow who hasn't made a movie in almost 10 years now, named Baz Luhrmann, an Australian filmmaker. I have a lot of thoughts on this man's style. So, where to start? Actually, I'll start with this. We could talk about theater experiences real quick. So I went to a screening on the 4th of July, and I was sitting near the front. I turned around to look at how packed it was, and it was a smaller seated theater, but it was full. But as I turned around, I noticed that they were all an older audience. And there's an argument that this film should not be simply called Elvis, because it's not really about Elvis in the traditional sense. But you're not going to get people coming to a movie called, like, Meal Ticket or something like that. It should be called something like that, something a little more subtle. But you're not going to have people see a movie called that. Like, if you call it Elvis and you put Elvis around on the poster and everyone knows what that is, and they're going to see that. And, I was looking around the theater, and everyone looked like they were an Elvis going crowd. And I noticed that they were all looking in my direction. And one of two things came to my mind. Everyone turned because I drew their attention by looking around myself, or I was looking on my phone before the movie started, and they were thinking, ugh, look at that millennial on his fucking phone. You better not be on that during the movie. Like, it felt like the scene in Home Alone 2, where Fuller gets the bag, and he goes to hand it to Kevin, and it's the elderly couple instead of, but times tenfold.
Yeah.
But I noticed, like, wow, an older audience. It makes sense because it's Elvis.
Right.
So, what did you think of the film?
I really, really, really liked it a lot. Maybe loved it, with the exception of, like, the first 30 minutes. Because it's like, I forgot his name, the director.
Baz Luhrmann.
All right, he did Gatsby. He did Moulin Rouge.
He did.
And he's got a style, not one that I necessarily love, especially with these period pieces.
Yes. So,
it's.
But here's the thing with that style, though. It stops being weird at one point.
It does, and like, I definitely love the second half of the movie a lot. That is, like, really great stuff, and it's like, the first half is okay. It is definitely carried by Austin Butler's performance, who is fantastic in this movie as Elvis, and Tom Hanks too. He's also really great in here. But yeah, the style of, like, Doja Cat singing in an Elvis movie, when this is a period piece, it's messy, but it definitely it clears up at one point, and then it becomes, like, just a genuinely good Elvis movie.
And I was thinking, like, no matter what side you fall on, whether you like it or not, everyone recognizes the style, and you either like it or you don't. And for me, I don't really care for his Great Gatsby movie. I just didn't get the style. Like, it felt really cheap looking. Like, if you look up bad ADR, I'm sure a scene will pop up quickly of Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire in a car, and Leo is doing most of the talking, and it's all these wide shots, and DiCaprio's lips do not line up with the audio at all.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of it is green screen because they are not going to actually put DiCaprio and Maguire in a convertible and sit them around town in real life. So it looks prequel fake. I would argue looks worse.
Yeah.
Something that Baz Luhrmann does, and I should say, it's not as bad in Elvis, but something that he does a lot
much better in
his films is this artificial camera zoom that just drives me nuts. Like, and it's not a zoom with the camera lens. It's not pushing the camera towards the actor. It's done in editing, where he zooms in, and because it's done in editing and not with the camera, it always looks fake, and I find it very, very distracting.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Showing these, like, frantically edited, crazy montages to represent the craziness of Elvis's life is appropriate, but he also does these crazy montages in moments where it's not appropriate. Like, before Elvis's first performance, or at least the first performance that we see in the film, is dispersed with scenes of him as a child and other things, and it's like, why? Like, to me, it was so much more powerful when he was just standing there, and you have these wide shots of the crowd just standing there in silence. Like those are very effective, but right before, it's just chopped up. And again, not the whole film. The whole film is not like this, but the first half definitely is.
Yeah.
And setting the film from the POV of the movie's villain it's a strange choice, but I also get that if you're going to do a biopic about Elvis, it's hard to sum up someone's life without the old biopic format of telling someone's whole life story in 90 minutes. So I appreciate that you need some sort of gimmick and maybe some way of telling the story, but then you're left with this ending where I was feeling really moved by the ending. And I don't want to spoil things for everyone, but I'm sure everyone knows by now that Elvis passed away. But Colonel Parker, Tom Hanks' character, talking about, I didn't kill him. It wasn't the drugs or the booze. It was you. All right, let's talk about Tom Hanks. he makes some choices.
Yeah, that's apparent.
He just went into like fuck it mode, and he's just like a cartoony Disney villain, and it's I guess you could appreciate that to an extent, but then there's like other things going on, like there's a point where like the camera goes into his eye, and then it turns into like a roulette wheel, and then that turns into a Ferris wheel. Like there's lots of crazy shit that happens, and in our Doctor Strange episode we did a while back, we were defending the choices made in Multiverse of Madness of these like wacky montages that Sam Raimi is famous for. And there's been a lot of talk online about how stupid this is, and everyone is getting ratioed, and I understand why that style isn't for everyone. But I really appreciate that in the Doctor Strange film. But there's something about the way it's done in this film that, again, because there's an artificialness to how it looks, and this done in editing nature of it that doesn't feel like it just felt very forced to me. Yeah. Baz Luhrmann's style isn't for me. Again, this is all throughout Gatsby, not so much here, but it bugged me in one particular scene in this. And you said it earlier, his use of modern music in period pieces.
Yeah.
And I understand in the business side of having a famous artist make a song for your film and putting it in there. It doesn't always fit, but I understand the business side of why that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, Lady Gaga did one for Top Gun. In this, it's a movie about a musician and about music. So using music from the time period is a wonderful way to set the tone for a scene. In this film, Baz Luhrmann makes the creative decision to have a Doja Cat song accompany a scene of Elvis getting inspired walking around Bale Street during the 50s. Why? I don't understand that choice, and I never will.
Yeah.
But, okay, I want to move on to, like, positives. You said earlier, Austin Butler's performance is worth the price of admission alone.
Oh, yeah.
He is fantastic, and I could definitely see an Oscar contender for him.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, the thing with Elvis is that he's probably, like, the most, like impressionable guy in the world. Like, everyone has, like, a, oh, thank you very much, voice that they can do. You just have to lower your voice, and you got it.
Yeah.
But to see presented, like, as a real person, I thought was just really, really great. And I believe it was Elvis's daughter that said that Austin Butler's performance is, like, the most accurate portrayal of Elvis she's ever seen. So that's got to be a really good compliment then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And as far as, like, his singing goes, like, from what I gather, it looks like it's a mix of Butler singing with, like, actual samplings of Elvis sprinkled in there. Like, but there wasn't anything, like, jarring that I noticed. Where it looked
it wasn't like Bohemian Rhapsody where...
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, so and it's not like Rocket Man either in the sense that it's Taron Egerton that's singing. He doesn't sound exactly like Elton John, but he sounds good enough. Or I shouldn't say good enough. He's a very good singer, but you don't really think about it because it's good.
Well, Well, Rocket Man was just trying to be like, we're just going to make a full-on musical about Elton John.
Exactly, yeah.
I listened to like a few different...
the Elton John songs that accompany the important moments of Elton's life.
Yeah.
In this, his songs are more... and you see him perform these songs. They're not reflective necessarily of that time in his life. So I get why you would do what you would do there. And like you said, it's not Bohemian Rhapsody. Lots of people talk about how it was more of a characterization of this man's life. But Rami Malek, I don't blame him for not singing because no one sounds like Freddie Mercury. But it's also really noticeable that a man is lip syncing to Freddie Mercury. So there's the two ends of the spectrum. You've got Bohemian Rhapsody and you've got Rocket Man in terms of performance. And I think Elvis fits right in the middle. Like, this works.
Yeah. And again, it's like I listened to like Austin Butler, versions of the songs like back to back with like just actual Elvis. And it's like you can tell there's a lot of Austin Butler in the song. It's not like you can definitely tell. It's hard to tell, what is mixed and what's not, which again is just great from a performance perspective. Like, it's just Austin Butler is absolutely fantastic in this movie.
Yeah. It's kind of hard recommending this to people because I feel like I can only recommend this with caveats. Like, it's not going to be like a traditional Elvis movie. Like, I almost feel bad for the old people that watched it with me. They were probably gripping their armchairs, being like, "What the fuck is happening? I want to get off." It's like the fucking Wonka ride.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about Elvis? It's a good movie, but the style is
really good
for everyone. But the performance is great from Austin Butler, and the performance it's interesting from Tom Hanks. I guess that's how I would sum it up.
Yeah. No, yeah, I really like Elvis. I feel bad. It feels like we've been talking down on it. If you can look past the style, which I can for the most part, especially because it does kind of go away at some point. It's not like Gatsby where it's like constant. If you look past the style, I mean, it's a really, really good movie with a very solid performance. So,
and I guess one more thing, if you were looking to see if this movie was going to address if Elvis stole his music from black culture, watch another movie. There's that very brief shot where he's filming that Christmas special, and he's talking to the audience on the small stage. He's like, rock and roll, to me, is derived from blues and gospel. And that's all we really get from his defense. So,
yeah.
That's Elvis for you. So, I watched The Boys Season 3. Did you... you haven't watched The Boys yet, have you?
Not yet. There's a lot of shows that I need to get caught up on. I'm kind of in between a few right now, so...
Okay. Well, when you get to a point, watch The Boys. It is on Amazon Prime. It is like I don't want to say I hate the term cape shit, but it's like people say like The Boys is my favorite cape shit. Like it's just a dumb term. Just anyway, The Boys is so great. Season 3 is probably my favorite season of The Boys in the fact that everyone gets something to do in this season. There's just great character arcs for everyone. And I really recommend it. But you have seen some animated movies that I have not seen yet.
Oh, yeah.
So talk about Lightyear and Minions for me.
All right. So Lightyear is Pixar's latest and greatest and not really the greatest attempt of getting back into the theaters. I thought the movie was okay, and then I thought about it more, and I thought about how I don't really remember this movie at all. It's so weird. I don't hate Lightyear, but it is very, very forgettable. And I thought, like I said, it was okay when I first saw it, and then there's just nothing that sticks. Like it's when I like think of like really great, genuine great Pixar movies like WALL-E or Inside Out or Ratatouille. It's like those are just way up there. And the first Toy Story, it's like they're iconic and colorful and fun kids movies. But they're like movies that are just made for everyone. I cannot tell you for the life of me who Lightyear is made for. I can't tell you if it's made for kids. I can't tell you if it's made for, kids who grew up with Toy Story watching a Lightyear movie. I can't tell you if it's for Toy Story fans. It's literally a movie for no one. It's a movie that just exists. And I think that's just kind of, apparent when you look at the box office because it did not perform well at all.
That much I did know.
What's that?
That much I did know.
Yeah, it did not perform well at all. And like I was thinking, it's like it's Buzz Lightyear. I would feel like people would see a Buzz Lightyear movie, and then when I actually watch it, I'm like, I can kind of get it because it doesn't. The trailers don't really like target really kids. It doesn't feel like a movie kids would want to watch. And it's not like you really need a Buzz Lightyear movie, because it's Buzz Lightyear, he functions better as like the toy with this weird astronaut personality, and he's not aware that he's a toy. It's like that's the gimmick of Buzz Lightyear, and that's what works. A movie about it's essentially a movie within a movie, because the very spoilers, I guess, it's not really a spoiler. The very beginning of the movie says it's like in 1995, Andy went to go see his favorite movie ever, and this is that movie. Like, that's literally what it says in the very beginning of the movie.
It actually says it in the movie? Because I saw that as like, the marketing.
It in the movie. I'm not kidding. It actually says it. And yeah, I don't hate it, and there's fun elements of it, but it did not, impact me at all the way Pixar has before. And it's like even recent Pixar stuff. It's like I liked Turning Red. I don't know I forgot what came out last year.
It was the sea monster one.
Oh, Luca.
Luca, that's the name.
That's it. Luca was okay, and like I really liked Soul.
Soul was good.
Soul was really good. But yeah, I mean, Pixar's just kind of like it needs to branch out from like franchises we know and just give us more weird stuff. I like weird stuff. A movie about Buzz Lightyear, I don't need. So,
did you dress up for Minions?
I did not dress up for Minions. I'm curious because we both work at movie theaters, but not the same. Like, I work at Regal, you work at this different...
I work at the Alamo Draft House.
Yeah. Don't know what that is.
Theater chain that's branched down to other states.
Did people dress up when Minions came out? Or did you even work there when Minions started playing?
No, I started working there after it got released, but nobody dressed up.
Okay. Yeah. Did your theater ever have a policy? It's like, if you see someone dressed up, you can't let them in?
No, we didn't have that.
Because I don't think ours did either, but apparently I heard like that's something that happened where it just got that out of control. I didn't see Minions opening day, thank God. I waited like a few weeks. I have a somewhat soft spot for Despicable Me, maybe because like I just grew up on it. The first movie I do like, it's a fun little gimmick of this supervillain becoming a dad. And it's fun, and it's like, it's the only time in this entire franchise where I've like actually liked the Minions because they weren't the spotlight. They were just this fun little gimmick. And then every single movie after that, they became the spotlight to the point where they got their own movie, which was the worst fucking thing I've ever seen. This movie's okay, I guess. It's the fifth movie in this franchise. You kind of know what you're getting yourself into. I liked it more than the first one. That's not really saying much because like the bar is just set so low, but it's whatever. It's Minions, Minions. Yeah, that's the end.
So I watched the Netflix film The Gray Man in theaters, which is directed by the Russo brothers and stars Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans and Ana de Armas in the spy action thriller, and it was okay. I like that the Russo brothers have kind of been dedicated to making kind of old school action films in recent years. Like they've taken their Marvel money and they're putting it into other other productions or producing stuff. They also produced something like Everything Everywhere All at Once and that one Australian horror film Relic. They get behind some other stuff too, which is nice, but they produced that 21 Bridges film with Chadwick Boseman that sort of felt like, not visually, but story-wise, it felt like a movie from the past. Like, he's a cop that doesn't play by the rules, but he has a code of honor, and he's not going to be corrupt like these other cops, even though he doesn't necessarily play by the rules. It's one of those type of movies, and it's a totally enjoyable film. I think it's good to have films like that. Not everything has to be an amazing film. Sometimes it can be like, that was a totally good film. They also wrote and I think produced Extraction, the Chris Hemsworth movie. That was on Netflix, whereas 21 Bridges was released in theaters. I liked Extraction. It's not a perfect movie, but again, good action film with good action.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to go here with The Gray Man, because there are times where there's the Russo brothers style of action. They directed and wrote this, so when you think about what their action sequences look like, what do you think of?
You think of like pretty frantic, kind of shaky cam, but it's like a lot going on, just choreography-wise.
Yeah, it's like the Winter Soldier, like Steve Rogers fighting in the street, that kind of thing. And there's some shakiness, like you were saying, which is kind of, I guess it's kind of like a Paul Greengrass kind of influence with like the Bourne films. Like there's some quick cuts there, and you can tell what's going on in those scenes, right?
Yeah.
There are some sequences in this movie at the very beginning. Ryan Gosling has a fight with Colin Mulvey, who was in The Winter Soldier. He's also KG Beast in Batman v Superman. They have a fight, and it's kind of a smoky area, so that A, makes it hard to see, B, the camera operator may have been having a seizure, and C, I can't remember if I was saying A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, but third, the editor was maybe trying to break some kind of record set by a movie with a lot of cuts, like Taken 3. Like, it was so fucking hard to see what was going on, and maybe this was worse because it was on the big screen. Like, maybe if I watched it on my iPad, it wouldn't be as bad. But again, it's a Netflix movie, and it is a weird experience seeing the Netflix Studios logo on the big screen. Like, not just as a commercial at the start, to see the Netflix logo open a movie on the big screen is really weird.
Yeah.
I've seen a few Netflix films on the big screen. I saw Mank. I saw Chicago 7, and that one Zendaya, John David Washington movie. I can't remember the title.
Malcolm and Marie.
Malcolm and Marie, that's it. I saw all of those in theaters, and again, when the Netflix logo comes up, you kind of go, huh, that's funny. I could have watched this at home. But those were all like early sessions of it, and I wasn't going to see The Gray Man in theaters, and I was on my day off, and I was looking at what was going on in theaters, and I went, oh, I might see this. It doesn't come out for another week or something like that, but I didn't need to see it on the big screen. One sequence in particular that feels a lot like what the Russos were doing in The Winter Soldier, like a big street with like a whole lot going on and cars smashing into buildings, like that felt a lot more like Winter Soldier. Yeah. But there was some stuff that did not look good. Again, it's a fine movie. It's okay. There are times where it thinks it's smarter than it is, I think, and that kind of hurt it for me. I liked it when it was a big, dumb action movie, and then when I thought it was something else was when I didn't like it as much. Everyone's fine in it, but both Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans are both written very similar. They're both very sarcastic. They're written very similar, but yet they play it very differently. Like Chris Evans hams it up, and I mean that in a good way. Like I thought he was very entertaining. He almost approaches like Lucas Lee levels of ham, but not with the voice. Not with the voice. He smiles more in this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Russo brothers also directed Infinity War and Endgame and Civil War. And I'm not the target audience for this kind of movie. But if you are a fan of Chris Evans' backside, if you love America's ass, there are some shots of it in this movie. So the Russos knew what they were doing. Props to them.
It's genius.
A lot of people from the Marvel movies. Henry Jackman did the music, and it's a shame because I really like Henry Jackman. I like his scores for Winter Soldier and Civil War and First Class. And I've seen people call it a Tenet ripoff soundtrack, and I guess that's fair, but it was a nothing soundtrack. Marcus and McFeely co-wrote this as well, so all the gang's back, but it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
Maybe watch it on Netflix, or maybe don't. I don't know. It's okay. Funny whenever you say something like, oh, so-and-so is from Marvel. It's getting harder to say that because now it feels like everyone's in Marvel now.
Right.
So, like Christian Bale and Russell Crowe were just in the latest Phase 4 entry, and we'll probably never see them in Marvel again.
No.
And I guess we should probably talk about Phase 4 as sort of our last topic. I guess we'll hold off on like a whole retrospective of Phase 4 until after Black Panther comes out.
Yeah.
But I saw an image from IGN that broke down the hours of each phase. And Phase 4 had nearly 50 hours. Phase 1 has 6 films in it, and they all released in the span of 4 years. And now they're counting the shows. But they don't count the Netflix shows or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
which might not be canon, or the one-shots. Remember those? Like, my God, all 7 minutes of Coulson buying donuts. But now they count the Disney Plus shows because they're part of the continuity. So it is cheating in a sense, but we have had 6 movies in a year and a half. And granted, some of these were meant to come out like longer ago than they have, but they still made them all and they released them all.
Yeah.
This is too many. And we are Marvel fans. We grew up liking this stuff, so we have built-in interest. And more of the MCU movies are good than the ones that are bad. So it's not like we're getting nothing but shitty movies, so that's not the problem. But Miss Marvel was released, and I just didn't have any interest. And I just get my Marvel fix from other stuff. And as the show was going, we had a movie released during its run. It's a lot.
It's, yeah. There's a lot happening, and those poor VFX artists.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I must ask, though, now that Doctor Strange is out on home media on Disney Plus, do you have any thoughts on it now? Any thoughts?
Doctor Strange?
Yeah, Multiverse of Madness. I'm curious.
I mean, not much has really changed. It's other than, like, especially after Love and Thunder, I think I did like Multiverse of Madness a lot more. But not much has really changed since we last talked about it. You know, it's I like it for the most part, but there's still some messy elements in terms of continuity with some of these characters. But yeah,
I think I might like it slightly more than you. So I watched what do they call it? The Assembled thing on Disney Plus, where they show like a making of. I watched that for Doctor Strange. It's funny. For a lot of people, when they think of that movie, they think of the Illuminati thing, which is a little annoying because I don't. I think of the Doctor Strange stuff. But when they get to talking about that, they talk about Captain Carter, they talk about Captain Marvel, and they talk about Patrick Stewart and his return. I was expecting Patrick Stewart to be interviewed, but he didn't, and it's just the writers saying, like, oh, we owe a lot to him, and that was it. They show Sam Raimi saying, great concentration, Sir Patrick, like him shooting the scene where he's going inside Wanda's mind, so that was funny.
Yeah.
They didn't talk at all about Reed Richards, and they also didn't talk about Black Bolt at all, but they showed him in the background sitting there in his CGI pajamas. But anyway, the bulk of it was about the practical effects and the amount of detail that went into the camouflage sequence and everything. That was the bulk of the making of, and it got me thinking, like, man, it's so cool that they could still make a movie like that, and they were really passionate about doing that in this movie, because the MCU is the thing that gets the blame for everything. Like everything was made on a computer, so it gives me hope that we'll return to some more of this stuff, because I do think, above all else, Kevin Feige is a movie fan, so you know that he must take some of this stuff to heart when people call his movies the death of cinema.
Yeah.
But then in the Miss Marvel finale, it mentions mutants, and the X-Men theme plays. So we talk about that real quick. So look, as I've mentioned many fucking times, I'm a huge X-Men fan. And I mentioned one time that I think like the 2 references we've gotten in the MCU have, like, the X-Men references have linked in on the 90s nostalgia of the animated series. That's slightly not correct, because there is also Evan Peters and also Patrick Stewart. But again, he's dressed like the cartoon.
Yeah.
The music, which I've seen too many people call the X-Men 97 theme, which the show is not even out yet. We don't know what the theme song is going to be. We don't even have a trailer yet. That's the 92 theme. But it's to test the waters. So, like, when the Fox deal happened with Disney, we started getting all this X-Men merchandise suddenly. And not just Marvel Legends figures. I'm talking merchandise, like T-shirts and backpacks and all that junk. Like, or the pop figures. They started making pop figures on the movies to see, like, can we use the nostalgia of this? Are people into the X-Men because no one saw Dark Phoenix, and it was kind of considered like the black sheep of the Marvel properties? And now everyone is excited, and I just can't help but... I'm like Magneto in that scene in Days of Future Past, like, where were you when your own people needed you? Hiding! Pretending to be something you're not! Like, that's how I feel. Like, Now people are like, oh my god, the X-Men are coming. I'm crying. I'm like, fuck you. Where have you been?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that. Marvel is even now. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's something. I don't care because that show sucked.
And then there's Thor. Well, if I like Doctor Strange more than you did, I think you liked Thor more than I did.
Maybe at first. My, like, knee-jerk reaction was like, this wasn't terrible, but this wasn't Ragnarok. And this is coming from a person, I don't, like, love Ragnarok. I'm not crazy about it. I like anything with, like, Thor and Hulk and, like, anything with that. I just didn't really like Hela all that much, and there's so much of her. But after watching Love and Thunder, I loved Ragnarok a lot more. And then it made me go back on, like, Love and Thunder, and even, like, the first two Thor movies, and I'm like, it made me look back on Love and Thunder. I was like, this is dumb. This is it's junk. The movie is just complete junk. With good sprinkles, you know. I like pretty much. All right, can we say spoilers?
Yeah.
Yeah, spoilers. You've already seen Thor, probably. Anyways, I like Jane in this, although why the hell did she die? It's because Natalie Portman's probably done with this franchise, but yeah. And I like Christian Bale in this, although I just wanted a lot more of him. But, you know, for what he was in the movie, I thought he was really good. And I liked the very ending with, like, Thor and the little girl, and I thought that was kind of cute, but other than that, you know, everything just felt so, like, tired in this movie. With, like, all the performances, especially Valkyrie. Tessa Thompson really phoned it in this movie.
So, I've actually seen this movie twice now.
Oh.
And my first time, I was with a pretty silent crowd. It just added to the awkwardness because there's a lot of pausing for laughter in the movie, so that certainly contributed to part of it.
Yeah.
Also, I am disappointed that Thor is... Calling him a joke is too harsh, but he's dumb now. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
My second viewing, I enjoyed it a lot more because I knew what was coming. And there were certain comedy bits I wasn't amused by the first time, but I was amused by more so the second time. The screaming goats aren't one. The fact that it was actually confirmed by Taika Waititi himself that, yeah, we thought of that old Taylor Swift meme, like the meme from like 2013, that meme. Yeah, it's one of those movies where the more I think about it, the more disappointed I am. But there's elements of it I do like. Chris Hemsworth is really great as Thor, and Christian Bale is very fun to watch. And that's kind of it for the characters that I like, because Valkyrie is just present, and she's just there.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman is really not funny. And Korg, it's so clear that Taika Waititi was on set probably thinking, oh, we'll think of something for Korg later, so he's just in the whole movie.
Right.
And there's been a funny thing with Taika. For a few years now, I've had this, I don't know, uneasy feeling about... When I say uneasy feeling, I don't mean like a predatory sense or anything like that. Almost in like a self-indulgent sense. And it was clear before my eyes how much he didn't care. And when you have someone not care about the movie they're making, then why should I? Like, I thought Ragnarok was a breath of fresh air, but there was also this underlying theme of having to change Thor. And it's like, well, what's wrong with Thor? I like Thor. Or how the Warriors 3, especially Volstagg and Bandro, are just killed like nothing.
Yeah.
And those were characters I was kind of invested in those first two movies. Like, they were nothing. And it was a symbolic of, fuck Thor the Dark World and fuck the first one, and we're making this. And I don't like when sequels do that. And they made Sif funny in this, which is not what her character ever was in the first two films. Like, she has the, oh shit line. Like, it feels super out of character. I do kind of find Thor's line funny of, well, maybe your arm is in Valhalla. Like, that's kind of funny because he delivers it with such sincerity. But everyone's written kind of similar to what I was saying earlier about the Gray Man, of writing these characters very similar. Like, there's a thing James Gunn did with Guardians that worked, that so many of the other Marvel films have tried to recapture. And a big one is music. Using Guns N' Roses in the movie as something like Favreau did to AC/DC in the first Iron Man. Like, I don't mind that, but also there's ABBA and there's other stuff. Like, there's really obvious music choices instead of what James Gunn does, where he went with a lot less obvious choices with the Guardians movies.
Yeah.
Certain songs like the Pina Colada song feel like a mainstream bit, but for the most part, that's not what he does in the Guardians movies. So with this, I'm fine with Sweet Child of Mine and Welcome to the Jungle, but they, to me, were used like a lot less inspiring than how he used the Led Zeppelin song, Immigrant Song, in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And also on that note, the Guardians were wasted.
It was a shame because like that was like fun seeing them meet up together in Infinity War, and you were like, oh, that'd be a pretty cool idea, is having the Guardians and Thor team up, and then they just got thrown out immediately.
Yeah, and there's that TV spot I've seen multiple times, like on social media and on TV, with Thor saying, we're putting a team together. It's going to be Korg and King Valkyrie, my little girlfriend Jane, and the Guardians. It's bullshit. Why are you advertising the movie like that? I mean, that's the marketing team's fault. That's not necessarily the movie's fault, but this was the payoff to that scene in Endgame, and that's disappointing.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the Infinity Cones?
How an insane like tragedy of like half the universe getting fucking wiped out is now turned into an ice cream shop.
I'm just saying, they made a joke about a weapon that wiped out half the universe, and when people defend it by saying, oh, it brought people back, but it's not the gauntlet that brought them back. You know the gauntlet Iron Man used did not look like that. That's Thanos' one.
Yeah.
I gotta say, though, I had a Christian Bale dream this week. I was seeing basically Batman No Way Home, and there's a scene where Christian Bale is standing there and he saw the Tumbler drive up and stop in front of them. And it was Jim Carrey's Riddler driving it, except it wasn't in his Riddler costume. Like, he was Edward Nygma from the party scene and everything, so it's like regular Jim Carrey, basically. But he was positioned kind of like that first look of the Barbie movie, like Margot Robbie leaning on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And then he just drove off. And I'd pay to see that movie.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else from the MCU you're looking forward to? I know we kind of talked about this in our Comic-Con episode.
Black Panther, kind of. Mainly Guardians 3 and Daredevil. And Kang Dynasty, and a little bit of curiosity as to what they're going to do in Secret Wars. It's kind of it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the Guardians Holiday Special. Quite a bit. And yeah, and I like Ryan Coogler, so I'm at least intrigued by what they're doing with that. And I like the trailer quite a bit. And Guardians 3 looks great. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Actually, do you want to plug our Letterboxd? Because we both have Letterboxd accounts.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can follow us on Letterboxd. I think I'm just Alex Galucki. That's Galucki.
Yeah, and I think I'm just C Galucki 22. All one word, all lowercase.
Nice. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye. Peace out.